Okay, hello everybody. Let me know how is the sound. Also, let me know in the chat from where you're watching and the temperature and how's the weather at your region. Okay, so let's start the stream. We'll have 5 topics, but as we go along, we might add more. So our lead story for this stream, it's Ukraine, Russia, and US trilateral talks started today in Abu Dhabi. It will be Ukraine war talks in Abu Dhabi with Ukraine, Russia. Let me see. Okay, with Ukraine, Russia, and US officials. Hi Tara. Hi Benhir Rodaro. Sounds a bit loud. Okay. How is it now? It's better. Let me see. How is it now? I'm trying not to put too much on the headset on the microphone because last time it was like kind of background noise. So let me know how is the sound now. So it's better, I guess. But okay. So the first topic, we're going to talk about the Ukraine, Russia, and US trilateral talks that started today in Abu Dhabi between Ukraine, Russia, and US officials. Previously, Ukraine, Russia have been at war since February 2022. There is no significant trilateral negotiation format has occurred before. This time it's a high-level talk between Ukraine, Russia, and US began today in Abu Dhabi. The focus is territory, especially eastern Donbass. Both sides remain far apart on the other core issues. This is the first formal trilateral engagement. Ukraine is pushing a free trade zone plan in the east. Russia insists on territorial consensus. US officials are mediating. So why now? As we know, the persistent battlefield pressure and winter hardships forcing diplomacy into play. Ukraine faces severe winter power outages as Russia strikes continue on their energy infrastructure, on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. So this is the first ever structured negotiation that is involving all 3 parties. Opens door for a negotiated pause or partial ceasefire. Territorial lines are the core sticking point, not just peace talks. So Ukraine is pressing for security guarantees and restoration of infrastructure. Russia is leveraging battlefield gains to shape negotiation terms. And the US is acting as a broker, balancing pressure on Moscow with Ukraine's needs. So let's see the article from the Associated Press. So Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the future of Ukraine's eastern Donbass region will be a key focus as negotiators from Ukraine, Russia, and United States meet in Abu Dhabi on Friday, that's today, for talks to end Russia's nearly 4-year full-scale invasion. The UAE Foreign Ministry said the talks commence on Friday and are scheduled to continue over 2 days as part of the ongoing efforts to promote dialogue and identity political solutions to the crisis. The White House described the talks productive and said conversations will continue on Saturday. The three-way talks comes hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed the settlement in Ukraine with US President Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner during marathon overnight talks. The Kremlin insisted that to reach a peace deal, Kyiv must withdraw its troops from the areas in the east that Russia illegally annexed but never fully captured. Zelensky said after the meeting with Trump that while the future status of land in eastern Ukraine, currently occupied by Russia, remains unresolved, the peace proposals are nearly ready. Also, he wants to establish a free trade zone under Ukraine's control in the country's east. And as I said before, Friday is the first time that officials from the Trump administration simultaneously meet with negotiators from both Ukraine and Russia. This is the first time it happens after the 4-year war. While it's unclear how the talks will unfold and many obstacles to peace remain, some see it as a sign that parties are making headway in closing a deal. Speaking this evening, addressed to the nation late Friday, Zelensky said the Ukrainian delegation attending the talks reported to him almost every hour. They are discussing the parameters for ending the war, Zelensky said. Now they should at least get some answers from Russia, and the most important thing is that Russia should be ready to end this war with itself started. He added that it's too early to draw conclusions about the content of today's negotiations. We'll see how the conversations goes tomorrow and what the result will be. It's not just about Ukraine's desire to end this war and achieve full security, just about Russia somehow developing a similar desire. This is what Zelensky said. And as I said, Kremlin is insisting on Soviet territorial issue. Today's meeting will be in the format of Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, and the afterward of the Europeans will certainly receive feedback from US. And Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov reaffirmed Friday that Russia's demand for Ukrainian troops withdrawal from the eastern Donbas region is an important condition, adding that there are also other nuances on the talks agenda that he wouldn't specify. It's hours before the Kremlin talks, Zelensky met with Trump behind closed doors for about an hour at the World Economic Forum in Davos, describing the meeting as productive and meaningful. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, as for President Trump, he flew back to Washington from Davos. Trump said his meeting with Zelensky went well, adding that both Putin and Zelensky want to reach a deal that everyone's making concessions to try and the war. Let me know in the chat what you think. Is it this talks will be productive? We might see a ceasefire soon, or a pause of ceasefire. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Russia's big army has managed to capture about 20% of Ukraine since hostilities began in 2014 and its full-scale invasion of 2022. But the battlefield gains along the roughly 1,000 kilometers, around 600 miles, front line have been costly for Moscow, and the Russian economy is feeling the consequences of the war and its international sanctions. Ukraine is short of money, and despite significantly boosting its own arms manufacturing, still needs Western weaponry. It's also short-handed on the front line. Its defense minister last week reported some 1,200,000 troop desertions and tough dodging by about 2 million Ukrainians. So let's see more on the situation on the ground. Ukraine, the second headline we have for today, it's Ukraine energy crisis deepens after Russian strikes. As we know, Russia has been striking the energy infrastructure of Ukraine for some time now. So Russia's strikes on Ukraine's energy grid have cut power widely. White temperatures drop below minus 20 degrees. Power outages are now widespread. Heating losses risk civilian lives. Repairs require billions and extensive rebuilding. Ukraine working with allies on emergency aid and generators. US allies providing limited support to keep grid functioning. Also today had a drone attack. Drone attacks injured civilians in Chernihiv region. Let me zoom on this. In the town center, a 71-year-old resident of Kostobrova sustained injuries to her right eye and a second-degree concussion. The woman was taken to a medical facility where she received the necessary assistance. The events in Chernihiv Oblast underscore the threat. Let me see this. Okay, looks like it's dropping. Okay, the events in Chernihiv Oblast underscore the threat to civilians in the region. The injured are receiving medical care. Investigations continue, and there is a coordination among services to ensure resident safety. That's more headlines here. New drone attacks hit Chernihiv region, damaging a school and cultural center with no casualty reported. Russian drone attack in Verdivka in Nizhyn district. Injuries 4 civilians. Russian repeated drone attack a civilian carrying Starosativska community, causing burns and stress to 2 people. So as we know, Russia has been conducting drone operations beyond the front line. And this is a news we got today from the Chernihiv region. An explosive device dropped from drones, injuring civilian. A 71 woman. Okay, actually that was our 3rd story. The civilians hit by the drone. We've been through it. Let's go to the 4th story. It's we're going back to Greenland. NATO moves to ensure Arctic security. I hate these advertisements. Okay, NATO and Denmark agrees to boost Arctic security after Trump walks back from Greenland threats. NATO said that the United States, Denmark, and Greenland will negotiate on stepping up efforts to stop Russia and China gaining a foothold on the territory. We are working together to ensure that the whole NATO is safe and secure, and we will build on our cooperation to enhance our deterrence and defense in the Arctic, Rudd wrote in a post on X. Defense and security in the Arctic are matters for the entire alliance, she wrote on X. He. The meeting came after Trump claimed he had struck a framework deal with Rutte on Wednesday that satisfied him after he made demands to take the autonomous Arctic territory from Denmark. Trump backed off his threats to seize Greenland, and imposed tariffs on NATO allies, blocking him despite not making headway on his main demand to control of the island. Let me know what you believe about Greenland. Is Trump going full speed? He's going to have attack Greenland. He's going to take over Greenland. I mean, they already have the bases there, so they can just expand the bases, the US base in Greenland, and that will support the claims about NATO security. And I believe that's what's going to be see happening from in Greenland soon. The NATO will have more presence in Greenland, along with the USA, and probably the US military base will expand or grow bigger or bring more people there, and that's all they want. They can still control the shipping routes, the petrol that goes from Greenland, and also the radars can see, you know, any Russian movements or China or anything for what they say worrying about the security of NATO. Members of the alliance have floated setting up a new NATO mission in the Arctic, but commanders say concrete planning has yet to start. Officials familiar with the talk with Trump said that Denmark and the United States would look to renegotiate a 1951 pact governing American force deployment on Greenland. That could allow Washington to boost its military footprint on the vast island, including potentially stationing parts of Trump's plans Golden Dome missile defense system. Why is this connecting my... Okay, it's back. So what do you think? I mean, what I said, it's actually on the article right here, just after. We're going to go deeper about Greenland. I want to analyze it more. It's an important matter. Let me see here my notes. Greenland. Okay. All right. So, basically, this is Greenland, and here was the US base. It's P2FIC base. Can see where it is. P2FIC base. This is a nuke. They have that airport. They have the airport. Actually, we have on the other stream, the steady stream, we have multi-camera stream. We show this airport here in Nuke, and on two cameras on the south and north of this airport right here in Nuke. Okay. This is a US military base in Greenland. The GIUK gap. This is okay. You can see where it's Greenland. You can see where it's Russia, Finland, Norway, Sweden, and USA. Of course, it's more on the left of this image. I mean the States. Okay. To make this bigger so you can also read. Also, Greenland has spiked back into headlines because President Trump has tied a US control acquisition of Greenland tariffs on European allies. European allies then walked that back after claiming of NATO framework on Arctic security. So we had January 17, 18, Trump threatened escalating tariffs on Denmark and several European countries explicitly linking them to a deal allowing the US to purchase Greenland. Then on January 20, Trump said the US and NATO will work out an arrangement as suggested force was not fully ruled out. In January 21 in Davos, and Trump publicly ruled out using force and said a framework for a future deal on Greenland Arctic security had been reached. He also cancelled delayed the tariff threat per multiple reports. So Greenland and Denmark continue to reject the premise that Greenland can be bought or annexed. Allied backlash has been strong and unusually public. Why the US wants Greenland? They want Greenland, as according to Trump and according to what he says. They want from the missile warning system and the space missile defense system of a Greenland. Greenland sits on the shortest routes across the Arctic between Russia and North America. That's why the US has maintained major defense infrastructure there for decades. And why current rhetoric keeps circling missile defense again. The GEIU gap we said we showed before the map, it's a Greenland, Iceland, UK. This is a key goal between the Arctic and the North Atlantic using NATO planning and for tracking submarine movement. Greenland's position anchors at Northern Atlantic Gate. Here's a GIUK gap. Here, these lines. So between Greenland here, United Kingdom, Iceland, this line. So the Russia-China competition in the Arctic. US arguments increasingly frame Greenland as a deny access, prevent foothold problem. Russian military activity first, Chinese investment infrastructure consent second. Critical minerals plus future Arctic infrastructure. Greenland is repeatedly discussed as potential source of critical minerals, and as Arctic ice changes, infrastructure and access become strategically more valuable. So let's see some quote what they've been saying the last few days. Trump in January, in this month. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. You will find out. When he was asked about the seas or acquiring Greenland, he said a framework for future Greenland Arctic deal had been formed after talking with NATO's chief. Greenland, Denmark response. Greenland Prime Minister wrote, no more pressure, no more hints, no more fantasies about annexation. Denmark PM warned, if the US chooses to attack another NATO country military, then everything stops, including NATO. Other US presidents before 1946, President Harry S. Truman administration formally offered to purchase Greenland from Denmark, but it was rejected and US access expanded. This okay. Last month or so, early January 5, cited by Britannica, Greenland and Denmark publicly rejected annexation, not for sale, framing warnings that threats toward an ally undermine NATO. January 17, tariff escalation is announced, raised publicly, a link to Greenland purchase pressure. Between January 19 and 20, Trump rhetoric, hardest in public briefings, you will find out, lying lads. European response intensifies. In January 21 in Davos, Trump ruled out force, claims a NATO framework, and cancels delays tariffs tied to Greenland. So, why Arctic Greenland adjacent shipping routes can be faster, with our estimates. When people say shipping through Greenland, they usually mean Arctic routes that avoid the long southern path via Suez by cutting across high altitude, where Greenland is the western gateway. So we have some estimations from Rotterdam to Yokohama via Suez. It's around 11,200 nautical miles. If you go through the Arctic routes, it's almost cut in half, around 6,500 nautical miles. Estimation of time. If, let's say, a ship is going 16 knots speed, so to cover 11,200 nautical miles at 16 knots, it takes about 700 hours. That's about 29.2 days. For going through the Arctic, the distance it's almost cut in half. It's about 6,500 nautical miles, around 16 knots, and that would take 406 hours. That's around almost like 300 hours less, and about 16.9 days. So it's about 12 days less. Yeah, time save is 294 hours, and about around 12 days are safe if you go through the Arctic. That's why Greenland is so important also for the shipping routes once the ice start melting. So if a slow or fast streaming like 14 to 18 knots, savings range from 262 to 336 hours. The alternative is Europe-Asia. From Europe to Asia is the 1003 route via the Suez Canal. It's longer distance, but predictable infrastructure. Even if this is shorter, Arctic routes face ice season limits. ESCO, insurance costs, and schedule stays, so the fastest theoretical path is the most reliable commercial choice. As you know, they have to go through the ice. Once the ice starts melting, you're busier, but they're going to need the shipping with the ice crushing capability in order to actually use this route at the moment. The Thule Air Base shows where it is. This is a GIUQ cap, as we said before, between Greenland, United Kingdom, Iceland. So if USA is controlling Greenland, that means also controlling the shipping routes. That means also controlling the most important shipping routes for China and for Russia. And also if they're controlling the crude oil reserves, the petrol, then they're controlling actually how China will be growing. They can stop China from growing up. This is what the one I believe it's actually the most obvious target what Trump wants to do. So, what they believe Trump is going to do soon in the future, what to believe its analysis here. So, shift from ownership talk to security expansion. He already did start doing that. Expand US military presence at P2V space base, formerly was known as Thule base. New or upgraded radar, missile warning, space surveillance assets. New or upgraded radar, missile warning, and space surveillance assets. Quiet agreements formed as NATO Arctic defense upgrades. The US already has legal access. This achieves 90% of the strategic value without triggering a NATO crisis. Trump has already pivoted to framework with NATO language. Probability says here it's high, around 60 to 65% to use this kind of method from now on. Economic and infrastructure pressure, not false, very likely. US investments often tied to ports, airfields, dual use, civil military infrastructure, pressure on Denmark to block Chinese projects in Greenland, critical minerals cooperation agreements. This countries counters China without headlines. Denmark can sell this domestically as developer, not surrender. The US has used his model repeatedly in Eastern Europe and Pacific. Diplomatic reset. With Denmark, this is another scenario, the third scenario. The second scenario, let's say it's about 55 to 60%. This is another scenario with the probability around 45 to 50%. Diplomatic reset with Denmark, Greenland kept separately. Direct US-Greenland dialogue without sovereign language. Denmark remains the former gatekeeper, but Greenland gets visibility. Public talk cools down. Here, as we know already, Trump pulled off from tariffs. NATO unity matters more than rhetorical dominance. Arctic cooperation forums to require Denmark on board. In the first scenario, renewed rhetorical pressure but no action. Occasional Trump remarks about the importance of strategic necessity. No concrete policy attached. US mainly for domestic political signaling. Trump used leverage language as a negotiation pressure, but escalation already produced backlash, diminishing returns for now. The fifth scenario, military coercion or forced takeover. This is like near zero to happen, less than 5%, so we don't believe that it's going to be attacking Greenland, threatening or acting against Denmark, a NATO ally, breaking core alliance doctrine, severe global market and alliance fallout. Why this won't happen? Trump explicitly rule out force. Pentagon and NATO command structures resist. This cost massively outweighs benefits. So, bottom line, the US does not want to own Greenland, does not need to own Greenland to control what really matters, the security matters, he say. What matters is early missile warning, the access to the Arctic, and blocking Russia and Chinese footholds. So most likely outcome, more US military capability in Greenland under NATO cover without changing the flag. Ownership talk was for leverage. Security infrastructure is the real objective. So we don't believe that they're going to go on an attack war and go against NATO, because a conflict between USA and NATO. Trump, he's not stupid, he's not going to go do that. Of course, as we know, he's a businessman, he's using hard language, he's using the US military power, he's going to the extreme edge, so he's asking for everything, and if he gets something out of it, then he's going to say, I got everything out of it, and whatever he gets, whatever he gains out of it, is still a victory for him. That's, we can see how Trump is, his style of negotiating. So let me know in the comments on the chat, do you believe that he will attack Greenland? That he just, which scenario of the 5 scenarios we said, do you believe is most likely? Try to see here, I not even have anything else for this. So it was, let me just rephrase, let me just review the scenarios. The scenario number 1, it's a shift from ownership talk to security expansion, which I believe is the most likely. The scenario number 2, economic and infrastructure pressure, not by force. The scenario 3, diplomatic reset with Denmark, Greenland, are kept separate. And 4, renew rhetorical pressure, but no any actions. And the 5th, it's a military action, military coercion or forced takeover, which you believe it's very unlikely. Let me know in the chat what you think. Terra or any, I don't see invasion, but hopefully peaceful way of get to have a small area for his dome. It's what also I believe, Terra. As we said, it's the most matter, it's the biggest important from what Trump is saying. It's actually security. So they do have a base there. They can just, expand the base more, add new system, new anti-radar systems, and they can still control the space above and around Greenland from there. So they already have this, they already have food on the ground, they're already there, they already have the base. Maybe now Trump, he negotiated to get something more and probably expand that base. So expand the US military presence at the Putifuk space base. My new or upgraded radar, missile warning systems, and space surveillance assets. And NATO will also be a part of it for the security around Greenland. It's actually the closest. It's closer to Russia and China than it's from the USA. Okay, let me see what is there. What does I have there? So I have here explanation about the base, which is actually the radar comes first. The early warning radar is physically separated and protected. Its only job to detect missile launches and track objects in space. Then data flows south instantly. Radar data goes directly to NORAD and US Space Force networks. Then decision makers in North America see the launch within minutes. This is from talking about the Pituffik space base. So everything else that supports the radar, power, communications, fuel, housing, runway, all those exist to keep the radar running 24/7 in Arctic conditions. So as we know, Pituffik is not a compact base. Actually, it's an early warning system. Early warning switchboard. If the radar stays online, North America keeps warning time. I have a nice drawing here. I put on the screen. To explain actually the system, how it works. North, the missile flight path, early warning radar, missile detection, space tracking, the links, of course, it's more technical now. Secure data links, NORAD Space Force, the command and control, first penny warning squadron, operation centers, then we have the communication and power system, SATCOM, heart and power, backup systems, of course, the base core, living quarters, maintenance and storage, fuel and logistics, the airfield/runway, heavy transport aircrafts, Arctic logistics flights, deep water port, sealed resupply, fuel and heavy cargo. This is a climate graph of the base. Its altitude, it's 59 meters. Okay. Between the months, we can see that actually the precipitation, January, February, March, April. Anyways, weather thing, the actual base. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I'll try to, as I said, I promised to try to make more and more live streams covering everything that's happening. Don't forget to press the bell to get notified, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Let me know in the chat or in the comments after as we push the video. Thank you all for being members, supporting the channel, to stay up and giving you live streams and live cameras from around the world. I would redirect you to we have the non-stop live stream. Right now we have a camera in Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago. We have also 2 cameras in Greenland airports. That's from the Nuuk airport, north and south camera. So I know I keep promising that I'll do more live streams. I've been busy myself, extremely busy with my software that I'm developing, and I want to really finish developing hopefully soon and have a production version to take out. But as I've been doing the finishing touch, I will try to push myself and do streams whenever there's news. If possible, I'll try to do them daily. So stay tuned. Press the bell to get notified, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks all for watching. Thank you, Tara, Popstar, anybody I see in the chat, and Jack. Okay, and all the lurkers who are lurking. Thank you for being here. Let me see, yeah. Thank you, Zimmerman. Nice to see you around. Let me see who else is lurking here. Don't be shy. Can talk on the chat. Just send a hi on the chat. Highly appreciated. Temperature here in Cyprus. It's at 33 degrees. It's after midnight, 12:34. We've been having some rain the last few days, which is good for Cyprus since we don't get much rain actually. And now today the weather was the temperature was between 16 to 12 degrees Celsius. Okay, before we go on, I see here an article in New York Times about Cyprus. So let's put it on the screen as the last part. I just saw it now. It sounds interesting. Okay, website here. Okay, how Britain's base, we have a base in Akrotiri, in Cyprus could be a blueprint for Trump's Greenland deal. I just saw this article. Let me put it here on the screen. Oh, I hate when they do this. Okay, let's see if I can get it on the reading mode. Okay. So, a lot of talk has been about Cyprus lately, actually, since Gaza war and now about Greenland and since Iran. Okay, now NATO officials signaled an agreement with Mr. Trump on Greenland may be modeled on Britain's sovereign-based areas in Cyprus. Few details have emerged about the framework of a tentative deal that President Trump said he had reached with NATO over Greenland, but one proposal under discussion would allow the United States to own pockets of land in Greenland for military bases. Western officials who spoke to the New York Times compared the idea to a 60-year-old agreement under which Britain operates sovereign military bases on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. Those bases, known as sovereign base areas or SBAs, occupy an unusual position in international law, one that is deeply rooted in Britain's colonial history. Experts say that Trump may be interested in a similar type of arrangement because the bases could give the United States a permanent presence in Greenland while offering greater control over the region and the ability to exploit natural resources in the territory and the Arctic. We have the sovereign bases in Akrotiri, in Cyprus, since 1960s, was after the war, 1974, I'm not sure now how long they've been here. Which actually is sovereign base, that means that actually the country that has a base in another country, it's not controlled. For example, the Akrotiri base is not actually controlled by Cyprus, it's controlled by them. Which we here in Cyprus, we don't really fancy that, but this is what the deal they make, and that's why they call it sovereign base. So what this article is saying now, that Trump might try to do the same in Greenland. What the UK did in Cyprus, do in Greenland. Okay, thanks all for watching. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you on the next one.